So, let's talk for a moment. So, as the SCA is getting spun up again, as we're hopefully nearing the end of this COVID phase in our history, we're hopefully going to see more events coming up, and we're going to see nobles traveling and royals traveling, and there's probably going to be a couple of you out there who are going to be going to your first events or your first event in a number of years. And there's a really good chance that some of you are going to get called into court. So that's a big exciting moment. It's a thrill, and when it happens, if you are called into court for an award, I want you to enjoy it, savor it. It's exciting, a little scary. But I'd like to talk for a minute about what happens when you get called into court for an award, because it can be a little jarring if you're not ready for it. So first of all, the herald is going to call your name, and they're probably going to mispronounce it. That's not a knock on you, and it's not a knock on the herald. I'll tell you firsthand experience. Voice heralds for court, especially in the afternoons or evenings, they are tired. They're probably going on a lot less sleep than they should have. They're going through a script that has been penciled in, probably under not the best lighting and not the most comfortable penmanship position. So understand that it could be a name as simple as John Smith, and if they had a tongue twister right before that of a name, they may still mispronounce yours. I don't want to make too big a deal out of this, and chances are it won't happen, but if someone goes to call your name out and they mispronounce it, I promise you it was done in good faith and an honest mistake. And if someone says, hey, they just called you up, you realize, oh, that was them attempting to say my name. So be ready for that. It's all in good fun, and I assure you no slight was intended, but you're going to have your name called. So what do? You've never been in court before. Heart's probably racing a mile a minute. You're sitting in the audience like, oh, that was me. I've been there, trust me. You're going to want to make your way to the front of the court. This is really straightforward. Make your way to almost all courts have some center aisle. It's kind of cultural, especially in Ansteorra. Go up, get into the aisle, and walk down. Now, this brings up the next point: an escort. It's an old tradition that there should be two people going up to the front. Now, there's a couple of ways of approaching this. Most men are kind of presumptively expected to take their wives or significant others up with them as part of the presentation to the court as they walk up. And most women are assumed to need an escort going up. Now, please understand, if you are at an event and you, especially if you're a woman, and you are going up to the front, there's a possibility someone is going to jump up and run up next to you and offer to escort you into court. Please understand, please understand. This is almost invariably coming from a place of respect, being expressed differently than some of the more modern sensibilities might approach the subject. There was a tradition a number of years ago, many years ago when I first started, that a woman should never walk into court unescorted. It was considered disrespectful for a woman to go in and no man would walk her in. It was, for many people, a sign of respect, a sign of protection of the woman's dignity and upholding her honor, because she was worthy of having an escort, someone to protect her and guard her and walk her in full pomp. Now, today, of course, I've seen as many women walk into court unescorted as I have escorted. There is no rule or taboo about it. So, if you happen to be a single woman and you are walking up into court, or even if you're not a single woman and your husband is somewhere else and you walk into court alone, don't be surprised if a gentleman jumps up and offers to walk you in, or perhaps even a woman. I mean, it's something of an equal opportunistic society right now. Now, also understand, you are not required to accept an escort. If you don't want someone to walk you up there, or if you don't feel comfortable with someone at your side or someone taking your arm, you absolutely are encouraged to say no, decline, and just walk up on your own. But just want to talk about that for a minute, but please understand that that invariably is coming from a place of respect. They mean that respectfully. It's just being expressed differently. That respect's being expressed differently than some more modern sensibilities might think of it. So hopefully we can avoid any conflicts on that front. So in any event, whether you're escorted or not, you both walk forward. You come up. Now, this is where you come up to what would be considered the edge of court. Generally speaking, the edge of court is where the audience stops and there's the open space before the rest of the court assembled. Now, this is where you and your escort, if you have one, will stop. You will both bow. Now, when you come back up, you alone proceed forward. Whoever's escorting you should stay kneeling there. By the way, if you can't bow for medical reasons, bad back or bad knees, don't. Just make a general gesture with your head and you're good. But in any event, the name of the person being called forward, that is the person who has to proceed forward on their own. Now, where are you going? You go to the nobles or royals who called you. So if it's the king summons you, you will go before the crown. If it's the baron or baroness that calls you, you'll go before the baron or baroness. Now, here's where there's a little bit of fun dichotomy here. Most of the time, there are two people up there calling you into court, baron and baroness, or baroness and baroness in some cases now, king, queen, but there are physically two seats, and you'll have two thrones, and generally you'll have two sets of kneeling pillows, or one set, two kneeling pillows there. Which one do you kneel at? If they specifically say the king calls you forward, you're being called before the king. That's a single person. You kneel there. The crown calls forth. Well, okay. Which one do you want to pick? You can go to either one. There should be no slight, and there's no obligation for you to pick one over the other. If there's only one pillow, obviously go to that pillow. Sometimes they will set the pillow down between the two thrones, forward of them, and you can kneel there. But at the same time, when I was called into court, I could very easily have knelt before the king, or very easily knelt before the queen. Pick one. There was something of a humorous incident one time where one person came up, and it was something of a running joke about who's he going to kneel before, and he promptly stood between both of them and knelt down with his knees, one on each pillow. And then the next person who walked up pulled one pillow aside, put the other one in the middle, and knelt down on that. So a little bit of court shtick there. You don't need to worry about the details on that, but understand that when you get up there, your mind's going to go, where do I go, where do I go? Just pick one, you'll be fine. Now, while you're kneeling there, your heart's going to be going about 100 miles an hour. You're probably going to be hearing it in your ears. You might even be breathing heavy. If it's your first time up, it's exciting, it's thrilling, it's more than a little scary. That's okay. Just roll with it. You're fine. Once you're up there, the court will take over. The crown or the nobles will speak to you, and they will speak about you. They will explain to the audience why you're up there. And then they will turn to the herald, and the herald will read whatever the scroll or award or notation is. And if there's regalia with that, if there's some sort of insignia or medallion or garter, you'll be presented with that. And then the crown will instruct you to rise. They'll give you leave to rise, at which point you'll stand up. And the crown may have another presentation to make where for awards of arms, which are our most typical first award for people, you'll be turned around and the crown will present, lords and ladies of Ansteorra, I present to you your newest lord or lady. But I assure you, all of that you'll be directed on. Now, the one footnote to all this, I need you to understand. No matter how badly a mistake you make up there, there's no penalty for an honest mistake. I think we all remember our first few years in and all the times we stubbed our toes and put our foot in our mouths. As long as you make an honest decision and you act on it with no intent to hurt anyone or intent to do anything foolish or distracting, the court will understand. So, and once you're released, last bit of ceremony, they will tell you, you have leave to exit the court, or you may leave, or we're done, or whatever the crown or the herald says. The proper thing to do is nod, bow there. You'll want to back away from them. Ceremonies, you never want to turn your back to the crown. That's disrespectful. You get back to that edge of court we talked about where the audience is, and you will bow again, and when you come up, if you have an escort, they will meet you there and they will meet you in the bow. Take like one more step backwards, and then you can turn around and leave and go back to your seat. And at which point, if you've received an award, chances are all of your friends are going to be waiting for you at your seat. And there's going to be hugs and claps and kisses, and you'll be, there'll be a bit of a celebration in the aisles, and that's part of the fun of court. But I just want you to understand that getting called into court, it is scary. It is exciting. It is a million emotions at once. And if it's the first time it's ever happened to you, it's all of that. And as someone that's been up there a bunch of times, it's still most of that on the 5th or 6th or 7th time, no matter how many years it's been. So please savor the moment, enjoy the moment, but I want you to understand the moment a little bit better with this video so that if it does happen and you are called up, when your friends are called up, you're that much better prepared so that you're not terrified and you walk up. So thank you very much, and God bless.